Hello, my name is Nicole, and thank you so much for taking the time out to listen. Today, I titled this message, Ongoing Low or No Contact with a Parent. Ongoing low or no contact with a parent. Many of you have listened to past audio where there is the family trials, the challenges. There are so many different things that take place even around holiday seasons. And so some of you all question whether or not you want to deal with certain members of your family, including matriarchs and patriarchs. I can tell you that there will always be those individuals who will discourage you from doing that because, simply put, they have a decent relationship with their family, or they have learned to put up with a lot of toxic negative stuff that they wouldn't even tolerate from someone on the street, but they will tolerate much from their family members. Of course, those of you all who are moving toward the one true God, you know that He does not want us being in contact with individuals who are pessimistic, who are negative, who might even put you in jail, or you might end up having to go to jail messing with certain personalities of people. So in order to keep the peace, God will allow division. He will allow separation in order to have your own individual self. Maybe it's not even about negativity or dramas or anything going on with the family, but you just simply want your own individual personality, your own character. You are learning things about yourself. You don't want to be so closely tied or enmeshed with a patriarch or matriarch. There will be those times in your life where you will distance yourself, okay? You did it possibly when you attended college away from home. That was possibly the first time that you started to notice that you wanted to be distant from family members and friends because you were learning, you were focusing on your studies and so forth. You did it again when you decided to get married and you became consumed with your responsibilities in that marriage. You did it again when you started parenting, raising your children or someone else's children. You found yourself distancing yourself from family members and friends when you wanted to relocate and you knew that you had to work extra hours in order to save money. So this sort of thing of low contact, no contact has been going on in our lives during different seasons, even when we didn't realize that's what we were doing, but other people around us called us out on it and said, oh, you're becoming distant. You're not calling like you used to. You're not writing. You're not visiting us. You're not reaching out and all of that. As we develop, as we grow, we are not going to always be connected with family members and friends. Some people take days away from family members and friends. Other people take months. For me, it's been years. You see, there are those individuals who are very positive and you didn't disconnect over crazy fallouts, ridiculous statements made, or what have you. You simply grew apart. Not everybody has that story where there was the great battle that took place and I just decided I was going to leave and never see this person again. Sometimes there are those internal things that we go through that we simply don't want people, so to speak, in our business. Sometimes there are those things that are not internal but external, and we're trying to grapple with that thing that took place. We're trying to get some type of understanding. This happens when someone passes away in a family, okay? Some people will draw near to certain relatives while others will simply disconnect. They will not reach out or connect with because the pain, the upset, the reminder. Some people are fearful of what might be said sooner or later, depending on how close they were to the deceased relative. So those that may not have been so close may not want, let's say if it was you, who was close to the deceased, to say certain things, because sooner or later that dialogue is going to come up with some people because they know what they did and what they didn't do when the deceased was once walking among us. There are those individuals who had their share of guilt trips, regrets, depression, mental illness that they're going through, and they know how their family respond to the mentally ill, mentally weak, because they've seen how they have interacted or didn't interact with those in the family. And so to keep from being further injured, they simply refuse to talk with certain relatives and or friends. Now, those that are very judgmental, critical, people who don't think very deeply, people who are very selfish, self-centered, even the know-it-all types, and some of those come across my channel, they're very quick to talk about what you should do. And even if it hurts you, even if it disappoints you, even if you already went around the mulberry bush several times with people, these are, I hate to say it, workers of trouble. They are demonic, if you will. They don't mind sending you back into the fire and then standing around the fire and watching you get burnt up all over again. Then you come out of the fire and then they tell you to go back into the fire again. Okay. You may have told them 23 different things that's wrong in a situation. And these people will say, you should just work it out. You should try this. You should do this. You should do that. But you see, people like that don't operate according to the will of God. They don't even have a concept and understanding as to how God moves on men and women. When you're looking toward freedom, when you are that one who's prayed freedom, people around you are going to put you back into bondage when they're not walking closely with the Lord, or they claim to be walking closely with the Lord, but you can't tell. Okay. Because when they're in situations, they don't mind telling everybody around them, I'm cutting this one off. I'm not dealing with this one. This one can go to you know what, but yet when you decide to do something, they want to pull you back toward them, even when they're showing all sorts of signs that they are not right with the one true God. But I am and then they have a title. I am your cousin. I am your niece. I am your best friend. I am your mother. I'm your father. I'm your grandmother. I'm your ride or die. I've been there. Well, God is moving me away from you. Well, why would he do that? Not that I want any of you all to boldly say it like that, but let's just use a made-up scenario. Why would God want you to move away from me? Why would God tell you not to talk to me or come around me? Who do you think you are? What, you think you something special? You something better? Huh? What? This type of thing. You got some who will become even physically abusive with you. Some will grab, some will push, some will even threaten. Just all sorts of craziness because God is moving you away. That's when you know. That's when you know that God is on the move, when that demonic shows up. All before, she was nice, she was gentle, she was sweet, she was kind, he was understanding and all of that, until the Lord spoke to you that you cannot be that close to that individual because they're giving you false advice, because they are not where they need to be with me, because this individual needs to spend some time alone. He or she doesn't need to be relying on so many people. I'm calling them toward independence rather than dependence. This individual has a mental illness and needs therapy. You cannot be the codependent one who's holding on to that one. This individual has been physically and or verbally abusive towards you. You need to distance yourself. This one has been greedy, has been using you, manipulating you, coming up with all sorts of stories to get you to do just another thing for him or her. Come on now. Some of you all, you've heard it. You've heard it. But because there is the flying monkey, the minions, if you will, that are around you telling you to please stay, please don't go, that's your this and that's your that, you go along with the programming only to be hurt all over again, only to be taken. Okay. Some of you all got negative bank accounts or really low funds behind messing around with people who the Lord told you not to sow seed, not to give to them. You rather give to the one that keeps abusing you, hurting you, using you, the one that could care less about you, and then overlook the folks out here that are doing something positive, trying to help people out. You see, some of you all, you are called to give to this particular channel, and you know it, but your money is tied up. tied up with this abusive person, this crazy making person, this one who could care less, this one who don't know a thing about the one true God. Your money's tied up in all these different things, but yet you're anticipating a blessing. How are you going to get a blessing when you're sowing it in a land of drought? How are you expecting a plant to grow up out of infertile ground? You see? God is talking to some folks, and I don't know if they're listening. I know these messages get cutting sometimes, but for some people, you keep going down that same rabbit hole of confusion because you just refuse to go low contact or no contact with someone because of the guilt, because of the regret, because of this thing and that thing. Whatever you have come up in your mind or somebody has put in your mind, you go along with it. And I'll be honest with you, I'm the kind of person, I can't keep looking at people get abused. That's why, to be honest with you, as quiet as it's kept, some people I distanced myself from because I knew that they were going to go through a trial of being abused, verbally and or physically. And when you know that you've gone through this sort of thing and you've been free out of it and you don't intend on going back to it, you don't want to be around people who refuse to see that they're being controlled, that they're being manipulated, that they're being lied to, that they're just being taken advantage of. I can't sit back and watch women, especially women, be just disrespected, and they allow it. I mean, it's just ridiculous that they will sit there and allow a man or another woman to just rip them apart, and then they'll turn right around and do good for them. When God himself is saying you are to flee that situation. You got enough money to move. You got enough money to put in for a divorce. You don't need to keep being that person's punching bag, but yet they'll continue. They'll rub their bruised bodies. They'll go ahead and say, well, I shouldn't have said this and I shouldn't have done that. They'll make excuses. They'll say, well, because I've been married 20, 30, 40 plus years, therefore, he's just having a bad moment, making excuses. There are those women who will just put on a half-hearted smile. I've seen them right before me working in customer service. They'll put on a half-hearted smile after their man has insulted them in front of myself as well as others. They will bow their heads down and walk behind their men. Yes, there are still women very much like this walking amongst us. And it hurts because I'm saying if you only knew the freedom in Christ, Lord Jesus, if you only knew that there is a pot of gold, if you will, at the end of the rainbow. If you only knew that there are blessings that you can receive simply because you decided to walk away from this toxic situation that you're in. There's toxic situations that take place even at the workplace with some men and women. But they'll say, I got to be here for the money. Just like the man or the woman says, I got to be here for these children. But you're waiting, though, on that freedom, on that season where God says, I am releasing the captives. I get that because some folks can't just up and leave. I understand. But when the season comes, and it will come, all of us will have a season that we will be faced with, that God will say, I'm releasing you out of this binding situation, this binding contract, this binding relationship, or this binding whatever you consider is binding in your household or outside of your household. When the release comes, you put your hand up and you be prepared for it. Right around August, there is a time period where people start reporting that they're being disconnected from a situation, whether it's through a termination, a layoff, what have you. Right around August, some people make up in their minds finally that they're not going to go back to a setting that is simply just debilitating, is draining them of energy. Right around August, some people are collecting in on the harvest season. Okay. God works in seasons, and some people notice in their churches, in their counseling sessions, positive reports. Finally, there's breakthrough. Finally, there's progress after, days, weeks, and months and years of counseling. So that isn't happenstance. That's not coincidence. God is on the move. So if you're listening to this message before that season, there's some prep work that's taking place. Usually there's some negative before there's the positive. Okay. Some folks, they're going to see a lot of negative before they collect on a positive sometime in August, September, October. Okay. And then the cold season comes along, and November, December, January, somewhere in there is this, just quiet. There's a sense of peace, a sense of knowing that everything's going to be okay and all right, even though there may be some residue from the fights, okay, from the dramas and the traumas, but you know that you're headed toward finally a win, you see, finally just a calm. You're not concerned or worried as much as you were during all that activity during the warmer months. Okay. So this is somebody's truth that I'm reporting on today. Okay. And your truth, though, has to have a victory. If you are walking with the one true God, you've got to have the testimony that says, I made it. I won. Not the I'm still in it. That's not it. That's not winning people to Christ. If you still in it, you are still going through and you're not able to have enough energy to say, yes, I've done it. I've made it. Not yet. Not yet. Some people prematurely, say some things, because yes, they're operating on that mustard seed faith, but that is not the end of the book, right? It's not the close. It's not the conclusion to the movie yet. Okay. But when it comes though, you could be able to get that testimony. But for now, you're a work in progress, through the storm, through the trial, through the fire. Okay. Not quite released yet, because you haven't made up in your mind to let some negative, toxic, stinking, thinking kind of people go. I don't care if you're in a marriage. I don't care if you are the mother who has no support system right now. You've got to make in your mind to get the support system. You got to make up in your mind to move, to relocate, to separate. God, his son, Jesus Christ, when he walked among men, okay, in the flesh, he did create division. Okay. Some people overlook that in the Gospels, but he did create division. And that is why those Pharisees were after him, because he wasn't going with the status quo. He wasn't keeping the peace. So whoever is saying things like, well, I'm just here to keep the peace, or I don't say anything because I'm trying to keep the peace. You've been keeping the peace for a long time, to the point where you're having a mental as well as physical breakdown because of who you're with, or because who you have surrounded yourself with, because it could be more than one. Okay. And so you see the negativity rise up, and then you want to fight up against it. But then for some people, they're too weak. They can't even fight anymore. So they simply just say, well, I'll just let it go. Right. So the grown son or daughter's taking advantage. Well, I'm not going to fight because, well, I need her for this, or I need him for that. Right. And then you are miserable. And then eventually you find yourself in and out of the hospital, asking the Lord, can you take me, like so many elders have done who have gone before us? Can you take me? I can't take these kids much longer. I can't take this evil spouse of mine much longer. Yeah, but see, you got the energy. While you still got the energy, you can do something about it so that you can live your last days happy rather than miserable. You see, you have a choice in that. Some folks, they don't realize that they have a choice because, well, their mind has gone reprobate. Their mind has become so mentally ill, so confused that they don't even see the light at the end of the tunnel. But while you still have your senses, come on now, you can see God leading you up out of situations, leading you away from some folk. Some of you all, you witness somebody's story unfold rather than gossip about it and talk about how this one and that one, went through. God allowed you to see it up close and personal so that you could be able to see how one was once lost, but now is found. You got up close and personal with some folks and probably even helped them through their situation because you simply realize that there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is an exit plan. There is an escape. There is freedom. Come follow me, just as Jesus did with the disciples. You see, some of you all, you have had those sorts of ministries, have belonged to some of those ministries, the come follow me. And some, you follow somebody right off the cliff, and then you had to scramble to try to find a ledge to hang on. Others, you didn't follow somebody off a cliff. You followed them straight into the loving arms of Jesus. Okay, that's a right relationship. That's a functional relationship. Those that went through some things and had some counseling sessions, you followed that person right into the peace of mind that you so desperately sought after for years and years and years. You see, others, they followed someone right to a hospital and got some medical treatment. You see, there is light at the end of the tunnel when you let go of the toxic people, places, and things around you. But as long as you make excuses, as long as you don't see that you are in a flawed setup, flawed situation, you are going to continue to be bound. You're going to continue to be the one who's hurting on the inside. You're going to continue to be the one that's lost and not found. The one that has that void in his or her heart that can't seem to make sense of the one true God and what he's trying to do. You're going to continue to have the negativity that arises up, those strange situations that nobody can figure out why you keep going through like you're going through, because God said it is time for you to throw your hands up and say, I can no longer do this in my own strength. I want to go all out for you. Lord, what is it that you have me to do today, this hour? You start leaning on the Lord and he starts directing you where you need to go. But as long as you waking up and you saying things like, I'm going to do things in my own strength, I'm going to pick up the phone and call this one, and you didn't bother to pray about it, and I'm going to go over here and you didn't bother to pray about it, and then you created your weekly plan, your schedule, you even got ready to write this email to somebody, and you didn't bother to spend some time with the one true God. It isn't any wonder why you're going in this direction, that direction, and you're here, there, and everywhere. You see, these sorts of conversations I have with myself before I even talk to any of you all about. And that's what puts me on the straight and narrow. That's what gets me back on track. Because I can't make people around me be anything more than what they are, right? And that is not making them do too much of anything, right? Because they are who they are. But in your mind, you think that you can influence some people to do some things. In your mind, you think you can persuade some people. Some people are going to, yes, okay, consider, right? If you're the advisor, the counselor, the teacher, you know this. If you're even a wife, you know, or a husband, you know that they'll consider, but they still are going to do what they want to do. Okay? And if they have decided or that they respect you, love you, care for you, want what is in your best interest, and they may go along with some things, right? And for some people, they're looking for the benefit. So you always got to throw in a few, nuggets of gold, so to speak. Well, what's in it for me? And then they go along with some things. But those people who are just determined to keep some dramas and traumas and whatever else up, they're going to crazy make on you. They're going to do all sorts of things to keep you just in a state of mind that you don't know whether you're coming or going. He's never satisfied. It's never good enough. I've been in this thing for 10, 15, 20 plus years, and all it is the same old, same old. And then you may say, well, here's what I can do. No, that's where you went wrong. No, what does the Father want me to do? Because there's no comfort over here. You see, but then somebody comes along because God moves on them and says, well, I got something for you. I got an idea. All you got to do is put the plan in motion. See, you're being distracted once again because this one and that one said this, said that, and whatever else. Or you got distracted because you got kissed on, hugged on, loved on, or what have you. But there's a plan. Some of you all, you went to the Lord and you prayed, Lord, what is it that you will have me to do? And the Lord showed you. And when you didn't like what it was that God told you, you distracted yourself with a whole bunch of activities to keep from doing what it is that God wants you to do. I can speak like this because I've done it. God said, okay, you came to me, you prayed to me about this, that, and the other. And so I'm giving you this opportunity. And so what do? We say, well, we start nitpicking on the opportunity. We start eye rolling. We start deep sighing. We start making up excuses. We start inundating ourselves with a whole bunch of stuff that we really don't like, but it's to keep us from doing what God really wants us to do. You see? And that is to let go of that person, or to let go of that thing, or to give your 2-week notice, or to go over here and look for a different job, or to not go along with this relationship, or, whatever it is. Some of you all, what you prayed. Okay. I can't keep giving you example after example. You know what you prayed. And so therefore it is time to buckle down and do what it is that God has called you to do. If you know that you prayed for more patience, okay, for instance, then God's going to set it up so that there's a whole bunch of things that's going to test your patience. If you pray for more love in your heart, God going to put a whole bunch of unlovable people around you. If you pray that you want to be up out of a situation, guess what? That person senses that. And they know that that's what you want. And so they're going to try to draw nearer to you. They're going to try to draw closer to you. They're going to try to hold on to you in some kind of way. If you pray that you wanted more money, guess what? God going to put a lot of opportunity in front of you where you're going to have to work. A lot of ideas are going to show up where you're going to have to work. You're going to have to work. You see, the one job is not going to be good enough. You might have a season where you're going to have to work them 2 jobs. You might have to put the kids to work. Okay. You want more money, you got to find all sorts of ways to get more money that are legal. That's going to keep you out of trouble. You see, people pray a lot of things, but they're not ready for what God's answer is. They think it's going to be easy street. I am here to tell you that sometimes God is not making our burdens lighter, but he's putting more on us based on what we prayed. Okay. And you will feel at times that you can't handle all of what's put upon you. Okay. Yeah, it feels like a burden because you prayed and you asked the Lord for certain things. And even there are those times where the Lord will say, it's not time yet, but you'll go ahead and you'll prematurely do something. And now you made more work for yourself. And now you're going to the Lord asking him to release you from all these burdens. So for those of you all who wanted the real talk today, you wanted the real truth, you wanted a kick in your butt, so to speak, to get some things done. This is what this message was supposed to do. Now, if you don't feel like you need to get up and do something after listening to this message, then I did a disservice, because the whole point of me talking to some folks in this sort of way is not to handhold. It is to give you a good push so that you can go ahead on and do what you need to do. If you haven't prayed in a while, time to pray. If you haven't made the phone call today that you know that you've been putting off, it's time to make that phone call. If you haven't wrote the letter that you know you're supposed to write, it's time to write that letter via email, text, or what have you. Okay. Or good old fashioned pull out the word processor and type it. But there's something that somebody who's been moved to listen to this message is supposed to do. There is something that somebody is supposed to run to the church, get to the altar, bow down before the Lord and confess and repent about. If you have felt so moved to listen to this message for this long, it is because it is time to let go of some people, places, and things that's keeping you bound, and forget what these people say about, oh, you gonna be cursed. Oh, you don't know. You need me. Oh, God gonna do this and that to you because you letting me go. Forget those folks who say all of these things or use other people to say stuff to you. You know God for yourself. When you walk with him long enough, you know how God operates, and God is not going to have light fellowship with darkness. So forget the guilt trips, forget the regrets, forget the titles and all this other stuff that people try to put upon us because they don't agree with. So what? Come on now, because at the end of the day, you're not going to be standing next to me when God is judging me. Thank you, Jesus, and hallelujah. Somebody needs to say that. You will not be standing next to me, critic, when God is judging me. You won't even be concerned about me because you'll be too busy trying to defend yourself, too busy trying to make up some excuse as to why you was doing what you was doing. Because a lot of times the person who has that big mouth who comes at you saying that you should in this way that makes you feel like you need to pretty much sleep with the enemy I mean, that's just how some of these people are, because they're on the side of the enemy. So they try to get you to do certain things to appease the abuser or abusers. They got something going on with them. And I'm finding a lot of mental illness going on with some folks, and also a lot of folks who are caught up in alcohol and drugs. Okay. Trying to medicate themselves by running away from themselves while telling you what you need to do. I don't listen to people like that. I don't take advice from people like that. You know, if you got to rely on alcohol, drugs, and everything else, sex, okay, running with this man, this woman, whatever, to give you peace, and it doesn't look nothing like Bible, I can't go down that rabbit hole with you. And so I cut those folks off. I don't even entertain their comments. So some of you all, that is how you're going to get your strength, is to just protect that energy within you, not giving it to other folk, especially people who cannot help you, people that don't have a good word for you. You have to reserve your energy, because there's so many fights ahead for the believer. There is. I wish I could report that it's going to be easy street during this season of trial, but it's not. There's so many fights ahead, and we've got to stand strong in Jesus' mighty name. So blessings to you. Please do check the description box for anything that might be of interest. You've been listening to YouTube, Enterprise 7. Almost forgot, right? That's because I have been thinking about changing the name. So if anybody has any suggestions, by all means, you can put a suggestion in the comment box. And if you would like to check out any of the books or blogs, you can do so in the description box. And if you would like to reach out to me, I'm at NichollMcGuire@gmail.com. And I know sometimes people come through and want to give. There are links to give, and those sites are secure. I haven't had any issues. So if you would like to check those sites out for giving, you can do just that. To God be the glory.